We're live.
We're not live.
Is
it for real? Oh, we're going to do it with the overhead lights?
Yeah, I thought I'd try it out. Let us know what's better, lights on or off with lights.
We'd have to pull up methods.
Okay. We'll start off today with weightlifting news.
Welcome to Methods Podcast.
Today's weightlifting news.
What the freak? Welcome to Methods Podcast. Methods Podcast. Up your game.
Today's weightlifting news.
Methods Podcast. Probably the tagline should say methods in it somehow, right? Welcome to Methods Podcast. Methods that stand the test of time.
Okay.
Right.
Weightlifting news.
Weightlifting news. I have to pull it up.
Weightlifting news. New weight classes? Question mark?
New weight classes? Are they good?
Are they good? Are they bad? Or do we just not care?
I think they're pretty good.
Before we did this, we had a poll on the Methods Instagram to see what the public thought of the new weightlifting classes. I think like 20% said that it was good. I think about 30% said it was bad, but majority said they do not care.
Large sample size, probably 1,000 people. Pretty accurate.
Anecdotal, or no? Pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate, scientific. I think they're pretty good. The major issue.
Name off the current weight classes, just the new ones. You don't have to say the old ones.
The new weight classes for men: 55 kilos. So if you're at home and you're not familiar with kilos, go and get your calculator out.
You do the math. 55
kilos, 61 kilos, 67 kilos, 73 kilos, 81, 89. This is wrong. I'm reading the old ones. We're going to have to cut that one.
Recap.
The new classes. For men, 60 kilos, 65 kilos, 71 kilos, 79, 88, 98, 110.
Why do you look at the camera
110
like that?
plus.
Why'd you look at the camera like how you said 88?
I'm just reading this.
Okay.
I'm reading it. It was highlighted. I think they're pretty good. There's the class that everybody's been wanting for a very long time is the 110 class.
Did you say the females?
No. I'll talk about the men's and we'll talk about the females.
Okay.
But everybody's been wanting a 110 class forever. And these classes are fine, but the big issue, in my opinion, is that the classes just don't last that long. And so it is unfortunate that I have to think, okay, in 1 year and 2 years, I'm definitely going to have to adjust to new weight classes. So it's a little annoying, although I understand why it's done. Why
did everyone want a 110 weight class for so long?
Because we had lighter weight classes before. Like when I joined weightlifting, the 105 class was the heaviest class before the super heavy weights, which is like 230 pounds-ish. And everybody just felt like that was too early for super heavyweight, because you would occasionally see super heavyweights that competed at 120 kilos, 115 kilos. And so everyone just thought, well, it seems that there's enough of these athletes that they would be better served with a 110 class, because otherwise they're forced to gain 100 more pounds than what they probably would like. Because the super heavyweight class has no cap, so you just have to fill it out.
Well, that makes sense, because you were mentioning about like the lighter weights of the new weight class. There's like barely a gap between the lightest ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what's the gap for the lightest ones on the men's side?
Right, like there's from 60 to 65, we have a 5 kilo gap, and then just before super heavyweight, 98 to 110. These are huge differences in the weight classes, in the heavier weight classes compared to the lower weight classes. Maybe they have a good reason for that. I don't know if it really makes sense to me.
List off the females now.
The new female weight classes: 48 kilos, 53 kilos, 58 kilos, 63, 69, 77, 86, and 86 plus.
I think, personally, I think it just sucks that there's less weight classes, which I guess goes into the thought of what you're saying about like the gaps in between, where it's like what originally we had, like even before this, the weight class that we currently had, this one's going to be enacted in June. The new IWF thing will enact in June. The one that we have currently is a reduction of what we had originally. So they keep reducing it, and it's like, okay, what are you fixing? Because it doesn't seem like it's fixing anything except just making people scramble around figuring out where do I fit in what weight class. And some people do have that problem of like, okay, do I need to just gain weight or lose weight, and the inconsistency.
Yeah, it's true. Fortunately for most people, there's going to be a pretty obvious choice between one of these classes. It's like, oh, I have to lose a little bit of weight, not to gain a little bit of weight. Big win is the 110 kilo class stuff. That rocks.
Anything else have to talk about weightlifting news?
I don't think so.
Weightlifting news. Sika Strength is supposed to be doing a video on Matt King's 200 kilogram jerk, right?
That's true. They promised.
Right? Sika Strength, tag methods when you talk about it, okay?
Comment methods below.
Comment methods below every Sika Strength video. Yeah. And you know what? We're gonna get Sika Strength on the podcast, actually.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, Sika. Yeah, Sika Strength. Come on over to Kokomo. You know, that like the song.
You consider moving your whole operation over
here. Yeah.
You might find it agreeable.
Kokomo's up and coming. You know.
You wouldn't be the first Irish people to move.
I heard Kokomo's like the new New York. You know.
Right.
It's gonna be like hustling and bustling.
They call it the Windy City.
They call it the Windy City. Okay, guess what? This is episode 3, and guess what? Still no questions from you guys. So guess what? No question segment. Until we get questions, there will not be a question segment.
Until we get questions, there will be no question segment.
Okay? So, skipping question segment into the topic of today, which is what? Progressions.
In weightlifting, the first place you're going to encounter progressions is the learning progression. I'm not going to go extremely detailed into what the learning progression looks like for the lifts, but the learning progression for the snatch, the clean, and the jerk, we see this progression from simple or accessible to more complex, maybe a little less accessible, or more traditionally, we could say it goes from less specific to more specific. And so we learn the overhead squat, we learn the front squat. We're not doing snatches or clean and jerks yet. We learn the strict press, not there yet. Then we work on it. We do muscle snatches, muscle cleans, push presses, and we gradually go from up to down. Usually that's what most people do until we find ourselves doing the entire lift. Just add it. It's over like little by little. We add another layer until we're doing the full lift, and it makes it really accessible. In this same principle that that undergirds the learning progression is also present in basic programming. So over time, over the course of a program, we always see higher volume to lower volume. And we also see less specific to more specific. And sometimes it can be more complex to less complex. Or it can be less complex, more complex. So progression, simple progression. One that I like for beginners is like muscle snatch, power snatch, full snatch. It restricts the weights, and with a good coach's eye, we can really take a look at how they're moving on each of them, and we can make sure that the things that are required to do a good muscle snatch are carrying over to the power snatch and to the full snatch. A good example of something we might see people struggling to carry over is especially beginners, when we go from doing a power snatch to a full snatch, people are often scared to get into the bottom of the hole. And so what they'll do is they'll try and dive bomb it or race into the bottom of the hole. The snatch may crush them a little bit, may overpull the bar a little bit and lose it behind them. So progression like power snatch plus full snatch, or variation like power snatch plus full snatch, let us reinforce that aspect of technique, and help it carry over into the full lifts we're actually going to compete in. What it might look like over the course of a program, what the progression actually would be, simple one. Muscle snatch plus power snatch plus full snatch. Next block, power snatch plus power snatch plus full snatch. Block after that, um, maybe just 3 snatches, kind of depends. We could easily bridge it with something else, but it's a very simple progression. And the type of variations that we're going to select, the type of progressions that we're going to do, are really going to be influenced by the level that the athlete's at and the needs of the athlete. And I really like using these types of variations as a progression. I almost never put a variation in a program except in a progression towards the full lift. So I rarely put a power snatch in the program if it's not going to be a full snatch later on. You use it as like supplementary volume, but I think it's pretty important that people don't add variation in needlessly. For a lot of people, for a lot of coaches, the pinnacle programming and the pinnacle of coaching is knowing variations. They think that they're really hot stuff because they're like, well, you can do a jump, you can do a single leg jump, you can do a single leg jump onto a box, off the box, onto 2 legs, jumping sideways,
Rebound.
doing a spin in the air. And like that sounds pretty crazy, but it's not that far off with some of these like variations that I've seen. The reality is a lot of variations that I see with like lower level coaches, they really have no rhyme or reason. They're not even really training equality. Some people they're scared of adding weight. They're scared of reaching higher levels of performance, and so they're interested in like continually adding complexity to training with no rhyme or reason. It's not in relation to a sport. It's not in relation to achieving a goal, and a lot of the times it's not even in relation to like cultivating a certain quality.
And sometimes it can come off scammy.
Yeah, a lot of the times it can come off scammy.
They just want to sell you a product.
Very true. And I think we need to keep it bare bones. You should be doing the smallest amount of variation possible. Variations should be used with a goal in mind, with a reason behind it, and not just to shake it up. We don't need to surprise the muscle with anything. We need to do 10,000 reps of what we want to get good at.
That's a good point.
That's what we need to do.
Bulgarian style.
So you can use variations to accomplish specific goals, but they shouldn't be done for no reason. And I think that the most basic reason to do variations in a program is in some kind of progression scheme over the course of the program. Are there any? Do you use progressions in Pilates?
We do, but I would say like it progresses. Well, first off, I'll say, are you like done, or will we go back to you for any of that, or is that about?
No, so you just got to be ready for me to interrupt you at any point.
Okay.
Well, something totally different.
Pilates is really broken up into beginner, intermediate, and advanced. That's like the basic levels. However, like I would say advanced is definitely on its own level. There are some things that it's like, okay, if you don't really have the right core strength or the right coordination, you're really going to be the oddball in class and you're not going to be able to keep up, and you might even like upset some people because they're like, why are you in this class? You obviously cannot do the stuff that we're supposed to be doing. And that's okay. Just start at a beginner. But I would say between beginner and intermediate, I would say they're almost the same. In the sense, I feel like beginner is obviously just getting used to reformer, understanding how it works, and there is a flow to it. If you don't have that proper flow, it's going to feel clanky. It's going to just not feel right. Once you get that flow going and it's smooth, like intermediate, then is when you can go to it. But it really depends on the person because um, Pilates has a lot of different aspects. You might be good at your strength, but might not be good at your balance, and so that's where you're held back. But for progressions, what I like a lot about Pilates is how Pilates is very versatile and specific at the same time. So you could do a class where you've got a mix of different levels. You could have a senior client, you can have a 20-year-old client, you can have an injured client, all in the same class and almost all doing the same exercise too. So almost like when I started going to CrossFit, even though everyone has that same program for the day, let's say there's snatches on there, but you have a shoulder injury, they already got a backup for you to replace that for the workout for that day. But I would say Pilates is even better because you can still do the same movement, but maybe just a little bit different. Because, like, snatching, well, if your shoulder's injured, you're probably going to do an exercise that doesn't involve your shoulder at all. What's good about the reformer is if you have a shoulder injury, you can still do a shoulder type movement that's just going to be more rehabilitative instead of progressive, if that makes sense. Um, so, like, an example, if you're going to do I'm trying to think of what's a good example on here. Well, I'll just say this. The reformer has 3 springs, light, medium, and heavy. And depending on what brand you get, you might get 2 heavies, 3 heavies, one light, 2 mediums. It just varies. But because of those springs, you're able to make everybody work at their own level. And so when I have him come to Pilates, I know that he's strong, and so I know he can do more weight, more springs, just so he's getting the same workout as everybody else, even though they might be at a lighter spring. So I like that. And then also, um, if you're doing an exercise that maybe is hard on the knees, you can just change the position and you can still get the same benefit of that exercise. I don't know if that makes sense at all, if I'm just blabbering on, but just because of how versatile the reformer is, and if you're knowledgeable of the reformer, you can come up with so many different things to make everybody work the same muscle group or the same exercise, but they may not be all doing the same exact thing. If that makes sense.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So I guess that would be like my progression. Well, an official progression is you could have like one exercise. I'm trying to think of an exercise example. I can't think of an example, but
Yeah, I don't know the names of any of the exercises.
This is what sucks about Pilates. Maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of the things in Pilates do not have names. There are things that have specific names that's universal, but there are some things where I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to make up a name for this.
I was just thinking that the other day, like, if in weightlifting, if you're a coach and you're in the gym and you know that, like, it's everybody that's coming in today, it's not their first rodeo, they've lifted before. You could write out all the exercises when they come into the program, and they know exactly what to do. But for Pilates, it couldn't be like, okay, today we're doing 10 of these, then we're going to do 20 of these, and we're going to do 5 minutes of this. I think you just have to show them.
Yeah.
I don't have no idea how you would even. I don't know how that would work. Do you guys hear this from a drink out here? Are you hearing me gulping? Are you hearing the carbonation?
Is my voice echoing because it's right next to the Amazon Arizona?
scream really loud, like blow the microphone out.
We're sponsored by Arizona Tea.
Sponsored by Maker's Mark.
Sponsored by Arizona Tea and Maker's Mark. Thank you. Members Mark. But yeah, like you could, like I just said, it's just another blabber of how you can take one exercise and there can be like 3 and 5 progressions to make it more difficult. But the idea of Pilates isn't about trying to do the most difficult thing. It's just about being able to, like, I guess, master the movement. Because just because a movement is easy doesn't mean that like it's like if you're doing have you ever had like you're stretching and I guess you wouldn't have this, but if you're stretching like kids for gymnastics and the kids are like, this is so easy, and it's like, yeah, it's not supposed to be hard, you know? So there's some movements in Pilates where they're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can I try to increase the springs or something like this because it's so easy? Well, yeah, it's not supposed to be hard. It's just like maybe it's a balance thing, or maybe it's a warm up thing. Not every.
There've been a lot of times that I was in Pilates and I was like, this part's pretty easy, and then the next thing is the exact same movement except there's another thing, and then the third thing is even more difficult.
Yeah, so there's a progression. Like sometimes we'll do a movement and early on they're like, I think I want to increase the springs because this is pretty easy, and I'm like, hold on a little bit and you can change your mind later. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the progressions, but all in all, I'll do a recap of what I said. Pilates is very versatile. It can match any body where they're at, injury wise, age wise, goals wise. And there's different progressions for almost every movement and a substitute for every movement if someone has a inability to do something.
She used ChatGPT to over that.
I have a ChatGPT chip in my head actually. I'm one of the first to get that. So when I'm talking, I'm actually me and Joe Rogan both have it actually. I had a question for you, unless you already have something to.
I have something to say, but it'll be really quick. The reason that variations are not the primary thing that we lean on in order to make progress. The reason for that is that load management is the most important thing. Like going from higher volume, lower intensity to lower volume, higher intensity, increasing workload over the course of the year, over the course of an athlete's training life. These are the things that are important. And so you could use a ton of variations to accomplish this. You could use very little variations to accomplish this. You could take either path. One is a little bit more complicated, but it might be necessary if somebody's really struggling to get a concept. A variation can be excellent. A progression can be excellent, reinforcing the right things. But I think maybe this is especially an American thing. People are not informed about some of these strength training principles, and so they're like, for a lot of people, the most profound strength training thing is like, if you actually pause at the bottom, it's actually harder. And they're like, well, I'm going to do pauses for a while, then I'm not going to do pauses. That's actually not a bad progression. People use variation just in order to train it up.
Yeah, just to mix it up.
Mix up their training, and a lot of the time, there's no real reason for it. That's unfortunate, I think.
A question I had, I don't know if this is related to your progression, but when something that you said earlier in the something you said a few weeks ago when we made a video. You keep messing with your cup. Something that you said a few weeks ago about a oh, how did you word it? When you were saying like something that maybe not all people know about, or something that you wish you had done earlier on in your coaching, is focusing on strength before other things, like building up the you know what I'm talking about?
Maybe.
The Subway Surfers video.
Oh well, this is something that I always knew because when I got into exercise, the first book that I read was Starting Strength by Mark Rippetoe. I think,
and then we had to read it in college.
And then I read it in middle school, and that was my primary textbook and probably the hardest class that I took in college. Um, it was the department heads. He taught the class, and that was one of the textbooks for the class.
And it was pretty base.
I love that book. I love the principles behind that book. So oftentimes people will train beginners. So this is just for strength training. It's a little bit different with Olympic weightlifting and snatching, clean and jerking. It's different. We're talking about getting athletes on the field. But if somebody is getting into training, getting into exercise, and they're interested in strength training, you really need to keep it narrow. They're learning the squat, they're learning the deadlift, they're learning the bench, they're learning the press. You don't need to be doing a lot of variation. You need to be squatting with some kind of frequency. Starting Strength has you do 3 times a week at 3x5. Great. He has you do straight sets also. Great program. But I often have people come to me having trained before, and they're like, and I look at them, we go through some kind of evaluation, we talk about their history, if they had injuries, whatever. And I look at them, I look at all their stats, and I'm like, well, the obvious issue here is that you are not strong enough. Your squat is low. Your squat is really low. Your legs are not strong. So what they've done before was a program that I think would suit an intermediate. And so I say, we're actually going to totally strip you way down. We're going to squat. Usually there's not anything wrong with their squatting technique. I have them do something similar to Starting Strength in terms of the progression, which is the same sets and reps. Every workout, we strip it down super low. We start with a lightweight. Same sets and reps. Every workout. Linear progression. We have to do that until it runs out. There is not, as far as I know, there's not a more efficient way to make progress until you are an intermediate. We might as well it's the simplest training. It's the training that's made the most effect. With this type of training, you can make, this is the training where you can make like the most exponential gains. There's no need to do a deload yet. This is a beginner. This person doesn't squat 200 pounds. Why are you you're doing deloads, we're doing undulating periodization. This is not necessary. Or we're doing variations, we're squatting once a week. You're just not going to get that good at squatting if you're squatting once a week and you're a beginner.
Doesn't Mark Rippetoe say that like once you like have failed your lift, you've graduated the program? Something like that?
Something like that. So Starting Strength, it ends when you've failed a workout 2 times in a row. So if you fail the workout, you get to try it again the next day you would train. And if you don't fail then you can keep going. But if you fail again, so if you fail twice, 2 workouts in a row, you are now an intermediate. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I feel like a lot of people that I meet for training, they never made it to even being an intermediate. A lot of people that I talk to for coaching, they're in that boat where like they never exited the beginner stage. And that's the funnest stage because you can make progress so fast. You can make 100 pounds of progress in 10 days. It's awesome. Well, not in 10 days, 10 workouts. It's the best. So that's what I had to say about that.
Yeah. This is kind of, it's not really related to the progressions, but it's something that I thought about this couple of weeks I haven't told you about. I don't know why, but in my TikToks, I've been getting like so many people saying like, if your Pilates instructor is doing this, they don't know Pilates. And I see it and I'm like, shoot, are they going to call me out? Shoot, am I going to like do any of the things that they say that isn't a Pilates instructor? But every single time I'm like, I don't do that. or ooh, I am doing the right thing. But really, like, people shouldn't be doing that. I think it's a little bit I don't know the word I'm looking for. Attention seeking.
Yeah, it's like engagement bait.
Engagement bait, because one was like people are like, if they are not doing this, then they are not following the proper teachings of Joseph Pilates and the prophet. But it's like, it's not that deep.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not that deep. Maybe I'll eat my words and we'll have to recap back to this. But right now, I'm saying it's not that deep. And like, maybe I should look to see if there's any books on him. Obviously, there is, like, books that he's written, because then I could make a better, clear statement of what his intentions were for Pilates. But I really feel like his intentions for Pilates has to be progression. It has to grow. It has to evolve. The fitness industry is always evolving, maybe in a bad or good direction. But same with Pilates, it's evolving in either a good or bad direction. There are some things that, like, I think are new to Pilates that he wasn't doing original, that is just now a common thing. Like, it's just cool to be able to use the fixture as it is, but discover new things. But like,
right, like his machine didn't look exactly like this.
Yeah, it started off as a medical bed, you know? And what was I gonna say? I had a thought and then you interrupted. um oh yeah, so like one TikTok that I saw, she was like, if your instructor has you finish off with your feet in the straps, they are not following the methods of Joseph Pilates. The methods of Joseph Pilates. You're supposed to finish in an upright position because you're about to walk out. And I'm like, that could be right. I've never heard of that. But also, it's not that deep. What do you mean you need to finish in an upright position because that's how you're going to be leaving? Um, that gets maybe a bit more yoga-y when you go that direction, where it's like, you have to do this because of the spiritual father. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
But it just sounds a little too much, where I'm like, there's a lot of times. Well, I guess I don't know what they mean by finishing, because I always finish with stretching, and I always finish upright. I don't know. But who knows? Um
Everybody's got strong opinions about training.
Everyone's got a strong opinion about everyone's got a strong opinion about the fitness industry. But guess what? So many of them, they don't have a degree. But you also don't have to have a degree. But they don't have a degree. They just make up stuff because they are confident. They look like they know what they're talking about. They have charisma. They have riz, and they can convince you of anything because it sounds right.
Sure.
Same with dietary things. Do you remember when Arnold came out with that movie? What was that called?
Oh yeah, I forgot Arnold did that. The vegan one.
Yeah, the vegan one.
Whatever it was.
You guys leave a comment down below if you know what movie we're talking about. Like, that movie has so many like misleading flaws in it, but you watch it and you think, wow, that's so crazy. My dad was vegan for a year because of that movie. You're telling me beans made their like.
Wait a second, beans made his blood better?
Yeah.
Wait, I need to be vegan now. Or you could just eat beans also.
Yeah, or you could just add beans to your diet. Yeah, like that kind of thing, where like, if you just look like you know what you're talking about, people believe you. Do we look like we know what we're talking about?
Liver King, should we do a call out of
Liver King, get on the Methods podcast. There's a seat right here in the middle for you. Actually, we would love to invite you to a free Pilates session just for Liver King and your wife, or whoever that girl is. And you know what? We'll get you that concrete, wooden bed you like to sleep on, just for you. And you know what? We'll do it all. Liver King, ship them out. Leave a comment down below of any questions. We can all maybe we should make not like a Discord, but we should make something where people.
Maybe we need a Methods Discord. Maybe we do.
If we have like a Discord, and then people can, I would like to do like a segment where people can submit their videos for us to review or something,
Cool.
or they can give us videos to watch, like a TikTok they see, and they're like, "What do you think of this TikToker? What this TikToker said?" That would be fun, right? But if you think this show is boring, it's your fault because you aren't giving us ideas. So give us ideas. Anything else?
No. Hey, stay strong. Use methods.
Methods out.
Methods out.